drink in the wrong place. Anyway, I just covered Landslide, and as you can see, my box is pretty badly beaten up. I have another copy of this at my mom's, I think I mentioned in one of the videos. But this one I picked up at a tag sale, and, you know, I don't know, sort of a thrift store, but a for-profit one, oddly enough, I think. Anyway, it was beat up, and this was a very strange day that I picked this up. I went dancing in the middle of the day. It was, I don't know, like 120 degrees out, and I walked for 2 hours to get there. I was dehydrated by the time I got there, picked up this game and another one, I think, King Oil. And both in terrible condition, box-wise and components-wise, tricky as well. And then I went, and I was going to see a band, and I danced a great deal. I ended up meeting up kind of at random with a guy who lived in the area, but that I work with. And, well, probably had to live that down for quite some time. But on my way home, even though there was a train station and I was intending on taking the train, between the alcohol and the heat stroke, I didn't take that train. I'm not sure. It could be my cheapness or something else. And I was wandering around on the I-10 and got a ticket walking. A couple $100. Very, very scary. Anyway, I was bleeding out my legs because I had fallen. I mean, I was staggering around on the highway, apparently a danger to everyone, including myself. But anyway, the game survived, even though my shorts and my leg and my socks, which were covered in blood, and other things did not very well. Yeah, this has nothing to do with the game, live with it. My sunglasses got lost that night. My hat stayed, but I lost my sunglasses on a fall, and I don't know whatever happened, and I've never been able to find them again. They were these nice little round mirrored ones that I really liked. I don't know, I've had them for a long time. Well, I had them since my trip to the Pacific Northwest. Anyway, getting back to this game. So, there have been a lot of, in this era, of kind of auction-type games. And all of them have sort of the same kind of mechanism. One person knows something about the value of an item, and the other people don't. And usually, if they want to protect their item, they can bid it up and pay the bank. Otherwise, other players pay them. Masterpiece comes to mind as one such. I don't remember if there were auctions in Dealer's Choice. That always reminded me of the same kind of thing because you have this hidden factor. But there were a few games of this nature. This one seems to be the cleanest in terms of actual play. There's something really cool, especially since you can turn the states themselves into cash. I think that's really awesome. So they have this sort of minimum value, that cash value, that, yeah, you kind of make a little money, so you might bid a little under that and not go above it, but it does set a floor for you. Component-wise, the cards actually are really awesome. I found these really, really easy to shuffle. Compare that to, say, the Kingmaker cards. Maybe because it's smaller decks, because it's very similar sort of stock. But this doesn't feel as soggy, so I don't know. Maybe my Kingmaker's just been in too damp a climate here in Arizona. No, over many years. The board functional, a nice little thing. Here's the thing. Balance is different between the players and depending on seating. So if you're playing a two-player game and two people are sitting right next to each other, there's a definite difference as to what actions people want to take in order to move themselves around the board. And likewise, and that's why my order of play being reversed kind of shakes things up and maybe destabilizes the game. But I highly doubt that anyone carefully balanced this in the sort of way that maybe modern game designers would. So on the other hand, even with the full complement of players, with someone sitting in every location, the pattern of the board is different in different areas. So it's to your advantage, maybe, to go to one location where the open ballot is for one player, but it might be a disadvantage to have these fly anywheres next to your starting location. On the other side, if you land on those fly anywheres after going, say, flying to your home state, you then have an easier route to get them for free. So I don't know how balanced and unbalanced they are, but the board's not symmetrical. It's not the same for each player. And in fact, the fact that you start in different state areas in the or regions of the country, and the different regions have different dynamics to the state values that they have, it can all kind of slightly affect your play. How much? I don't know. Because in the end, it really is a roll the dice and move around. Although, it's not a lot of luck with the die. You're moving 1 or 2 spaces no matter what. So the big luck comes in a couple of things. The politics cards, some of these can be huge. The cards you draw when you get a state. You might get a big state, which you could sleaze for a very small amount of money, votes, or maybe get a lot of money for when you bid it up. The vote cards, again, big variance in these. They run from 250,000 up to 5 million, which kind of brings a point to mind, which is the 500,000s and the 5 millions when they're sitting in your hand look vaguely similar. So obvious like this, but if you just hold them like this, which is easier to see lots of cards, you can't really tell you got a 5 million there except by the comma placement. Minor gripe. So anyway, I think this is actually a pretty decent game for its era. You got to compare it to some of the other stuff that was, more common then. I think somebody did a decent job with this sucker. It says only 3 or 4 players. I can assure you it's a fun game in 2. Much more cutthroat though. You end up, every action you can pretty much calculate, is this best for me, is this not, except for the bluffing side. Kind of like playing 2-player poker, right? Anyway, it's a fun game. As a simulation, it fails miserably, I think. Somebody brought up that if you look at it as more a backroom dealing among the political parties, it makes more sense. And it kind of does, because there's not really a lot of campaigning type action going on. But with these trading votes, money, whatever it is that you've got in your hand, this political power, it kind of feels a little better, but you're not dealing with the other players as in the smoke-filled room example. You're still, maybe the system is the smoke-filled room and you're dealing with that. But, it doesn't take into any account things like issues or actual campaigning or anything along those lines. So for the simulation side of an election campaign, I feel like something like Mr. President does a better job. Candidate does it gives a better feel for that. Road to the White House, and I always have to bring it up, but Road to the White House is, it's this really audacious attempt to try to capture everything, and it gets so much wrong that it's kind of sad, but it's still intriguing because it is trying to represent some sort of simplified and generalized version of elections that may exist in someone's head, but when you start to come down, you're saying, oh wait, it's doing these things in detail. Anyway, this game doesn't have that problem at all. This game doesn't really make a lot of sense. You're looking at it more from a game perspective than from any kind of representational. You know, it may be fun to pretend you're a politician to crack some jokes or whatever, but it's not going to give you any real insight, I think, into how politics works. The best it can do is kind of say, hey, here's the electoral map at some era when California was worth 45 and Florida 17 and New York 41, which happens to be about the same era as Mr. President and as a number of these other political games that are kicking around. But the world isn't like that anymore. Anyway, up it goes.